All right. Happy Thursday, everybody. 3:00, the time to go over the book, start talking about self-development, engage in a little quadrant 2 time together. I hope everybody's doing really good today. I tell you, Leandro, we're going to train, man, but I'm pretty excited about that free CBD thing launching today.
Yes.
Big time. Yeah, we're all excited about that. And for those of you, has anybody, well, I only got 2, so I'll ask Vatris and Dana Boyd. Are you guys reading it yet? It's okay. There's no wrong answer. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Okay. When you do begin to read it, John Maxwell uses a lot of sports references, a lot of them in his books. He's a big sports guy. This is a lot of history, and old history, like Abraham Lincoln, Shakespeare, Emerson, even George Washington, and really even Charles Schwab and Rockefeller. I mean, cool. I'm kind of a history nerd. Like, I embrace my nerd. Oh, yeah.
Hey, Matthew.
Yeah?
Can I tell you something just really fast?
Sure, hon.
Nothing bad or anything.
I was going to say.
I emailed you, but I don't know if you saw it. So I ordered this book, except I ordered the one that says that it's for the digital world. Yes. So I'm doing how to win friends and influence people in the digital world, because I'm stuck at home a lot without a car right now. So I have to do
this stuff will work too.
So it's going to be interesting to see how it compares with. So even though I haven't started my book yet, I just got it. I'm here. It's going to be interesting to see the comparison of just the regular book versus mine that's for the digital world.
Yeah, totally. I almost guarantee you it's going to be the same principles. There'll just be more applications on the digital side. So maybe I ought to read that too.
Yeah, I'm excited about it because I really want to up my social media even more. So.
Okay. Yeah, awesome, Dan. I'll get that book and read it as well, so that we can start seeing the differences. Yes, Beatrice.
Now, you just ordered it online?
On Amazon. Yeah, hang on, and I'll stick it up in front so you guys can see what it looks like.
Because see, what I did, Matt, I ordered the Amazon audio, and I've listened to part of it.
Good.
So maybe I can order that one and get the hard copy, because that seemed to be more up to date, which would be great.
Oh yeah, I guarantee it's more. This book is 80 years old. I don't know. I mean, if Dale wrote that, it's old, but maybe it's somebody, maybe had a ghostwriter or something. I mean, Dale Carnegie's old school.
How to win friends and influence people in the digital age.
Awesome.
Wow, that's the one I want.
Okay. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I guarantee you the principles are going to be the same as far as
I'm excited.
It's really human condition stuff. But man, thank you, Dana. I think that'll really enhance this to have, kind of both of them side by side. It'd kind of be like watching a movie and then reading the book.
I know.
Like, hey, a little differences there,
Mine's better than yours. Okay.
Shut up. Mine's better.
No.
You guys are being jerks. All right. Well, the title of this chapter was The Big Secret in Dealing with People. I actually expounded on a little bit. I'm doing a Zoom call on Tuesday nights with some leaders in Nicaragua, and they're very interested. I work with some pastors and some leaders in the community, and they bring their leaders, right, in their respective groups. And then they're very interested in leadership principles and concepts. So I'm doing a whole different study with them, but it kind of dovetailed into this one. And outside of the history, I mean, I would really recommend reading the chapters, and I was saying earlier, like I embrace my nerdness. Like I know I'm nerdy when it comes to information. And so when I'm reading in the history, I find it fascinating. And some of them, like Charles Schwab, I mentioned earlier, they talk about him. He was such a fantastic individual. And I even put in my notes, if you guys haven't, kind of looked at it, you can do a 5,000-foot view look. You don't have to do a deep dive into the life of Charles Schwab and how he really became who he was. Man, he was a neat guy. A lot of great characters in history. But outside of that, it's really a kind of a singular concept here that really started in chapter 1, and it continues. And most of it, well, I should say most of it, a lot of it though is big time review, because we covered it in how to connect with people, right, in our last study. So we're going to see some of that. I did unusually typically when I teach or I speak, I typically just use bullet points. For whatever reason, I kind of went longhand on my notes. So if I look a little different, like I'm reading a little bit more than I normally am, it's because I am. Very simple, right? All right. So the big sentence that kind of started it off is there's only one way under high heaven to get anybody to do anything. Does anybody know what that is? How do you get somebody to do something? Miss Val.
Make them want to do it.
They got to want to do it, right? Now, he mentions in the book, and of course, I think it's obvious to reference that, you could shove a gun into the ribs of somebody and make them do something. Certainly under the threat of firing an employee, we can make somebody do something. And that's kind of where I went into my leadership study. Now, understand this. When I speak of an employee or I'm talking about, somebody in a group, these principles, you got to remove that. Even though it's leadership, remember my definition of leadership boiled down to its finest essence is nothing more than influence. And when we're in sales, when we're trying to grow businesses, when we're trying to do anything in life, first of all, we know we need people to do anything, everything. You cannot do anything by yourself. We know that to get where we want to go, we've got to help others get where they want to go, right? So as we begin to think about these things, when I know that I'm going to be talking about a leadership principle, but no, it's really just an influence principle. It's really just having a better understanding of the human condition and how we can put ourselves in a better place to glean better results for our life. We do that by, and we're going to go through this pretty in depth on it, and it really kind of starts and stops with neglecting our own human ego, which is, he talks a lot about in here. So does John. We're emotional beings first. We're 95, typically 90 to 95% of our thought time is about us. And so if it were easy, like everybody would do it. So what we're attempting to do is not only acknowledge the absolute, dependable tendencies of our human condition, we're acknowledging that and we're fighting it at the same time, right? We're saying this is what I know it is, and this is what I don't want to do, right? So it's kind of a challenge. And I thought about, there was a training about minimalism, the idea of living a minimalist thought process. And I equated that to employer-employee relationships. Most of the time, again, there's exceptions to every rule. I mean, I'm sure we've all had crummy jobs, and I'm sure we've all had great jobs. But most of the time, there's an environment of minimalism in corporate America where the employer is paying the employee just enough to keep them from quitting. And the employee is typically working just enough to keep from getting fired. So when you're in an environment like that, to me, it's like the good book says, capture the thought. It's like they're not being intentional about how they operate, because if you don't pay attention to it, that's kind of the environment that you're going to end up in. And if you can predicate that thought process of the minimalist thought process to relationships, to families, to homes, to communities, right? So it's all encompassing. I don't want us to be pigeonholed by some of the verbiage that I'm using. Understand it's applicable. Okay, so the first level of leadership, it gets a bad rap because that's typically where crummy leadership resides, but it's also where leadership starts, right? So yes, there's more deficiencies because you've got a young leader who's just, I call them clipboard leaders or title leaders or name badge leaders. The only reason they're leading anybody is because they have a position or a title. That's called positional leadership. If somebody has that, and I'm going somewhere with this, so I know you guys didn't sign up for 5 levels of leadership training, but if somebody is there and has that, even though they may not be a great influencer or leader yet, they obviously had potential. In most cases, some cases you're just, you need a warm body in a position and you just get whoever you can. But most of the time when someone's promoted to a leadership position, either formally or informally, which I'll get to in just a second, that's because they have some talent. It's an invitation into leadership, but there's a fork in the road when we have that, and I think of me, I was a restaurant manager when I was 20 years old. And other than, we'll get to I had a level 3 leadership principle that really helped me, but other than that, it was horrible. I mean, when I think back of how immature I was, and, we had cooks that were twice my age, even more so. We had one dude who was like 52 years old. I was 20, and he was supposed to take, the lead from me. It was, so I lived it too, right? So I'm not just, studying it and talking about it. I was that guy. And at some point you find out what kind of leader you want to be. And some people make a decision in their indecision, right? Because they're not intentional about identifying and engaging in certain activities and thought processes to create a leadership style that suits them. I think I've talked about the book, How Did That Happen? I wouldn't recommend reading it. It was pretty laborious, written by Roger Connors and Tom Smith. And they really outlined two different, the bookends of leadership style is a wait and see. And then there's a coerce and compel, right? The coerce and compel is the person who's standing over you. It's like, get me results, get me pushing you, tightening the screws all the time. I'm a wait and see. Neither one of them in and of themselves are bad, right? But too much of either one can be bad. I can be too much wait and see sometimes. And I want people to develop. And when you have a wait and see attitude, it promotes room for people to fail. When people miss the mark in my thought process and my leadership or influence process, it's not a time to criticize. It's not a time to show them what they did wrong. If I'm training somebody to do something new, there has to be a philosophy that there's going to be failure. And now we've talked about this, right? Failure is a better teacher than success. And certainly if you have someone who understands that from an influence perspective, then we find value in that. I remember when the Bucks drafted Jameis Winston, number 1 draft pick in the land. And he played his first game and he threw 5 interceptions. And Dirk Cutter at the time was the offensive coordinator, and the press is just peppering him. And finally, Dirk goes, "You guys got this all wrong. You think that we are upset that he threw 5 interceptions. Do you know we have 5 instances of him getting wrong that we can study and improve, as opposed to waiting 5 weeks for those mistakes to happen?" That's the mindset. That's the mindset. So anyway, the second level is permissional, and that's really the crux of the reason I pulled these in. I'm not going to go through all 5. I just want to show you the difference between a positional leader and a permissional leader. Now, when you walk into a relationship, when you engage with someone and you're wearing a shirt like this with CBD BioCare, I'm a positional leader at that time, for all practical purposes, right? They see that I represent the company. I've got stuff in my hand. If I'm going to remain a positional leader, I'm going to talk a lot about facts and figures and thises and that's, right? And there's a difference between leadership and management. And you'll kind of see the tie in here. Management is about systems and processes. Leadership is about hearts and minds and people. So when we go into an arena, whether it be digitally, Dana, like, we talked about that book, or whether it be in person, know that right then you're a positional leader. You may have information that they're looking for. Hopefully you got something they're looking for. And if we don't, remember in the How Do We Communicate, it's all about asking the right questions. There's a great book called The Aladdin Factor. And the idea behind the Aladdin Factor is that the quality of your life is going to somewhat depend on the quality of questions you ask, right? I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, you don't get what you don't ask for, right? And even the good book says, hey, bring your petitions to me, right? It's okay to ask. When we become a permissional leader, that's when people they don't have to articulate it. In fact, it probably never or very rarely ever is, but there's an attitude that switches in somebody when it's like, hey, now, like, it would be easy if I was coerced and compelled and I walked into and listen, I've been dealing with this for 4 months now. And I'm a wait and see with my son making his bed in the morning. It may seem like simple, but I think it's a big deal. Just to have, the bed making doesn't matter. It's just accomplishing a task early in the morning, right? Having that feeling, being responsible, being dependable, that kind of thing. And I could walk in there every morning and say, make your bed and stand there. And I bet you my man would be making that bed quick, but I don't. I want him to make his bed when I'm not there. That's what I'm trying to achieve. I'm trying to instill a behavior in him, not a respect for me. Does that make sense? So if the translation to that is when we're engaging with people, it's not a matter, and I did this in the insurance business. I had a pretty high chargeback rate for a period because I was really kind of, using the tricks in the book and coercing people into, signing, and then I'd leave, and I can just imagine an hour later going, wait a minute. Right? Because I told you there was this time in my career where I wanted to be on the leaderboards. I wanted, it was all about me. It had really nothing to do with the people. It's not something I'm proud of, but I'm glad I had that time because I can reflect back on it and see how, kind of like my being a 20-year-old manager, like, man, wow. I'm glad I saw those 5 interceptions in one game. So this is really the permissional leader is really the step into real leadership or influence. That's the question we need to ask ourselves when we're engaging with people. How do I put myself in a position where someone is giving me permission to influence them, meaning they're listening to me? They trust me, right? They like me. All the things we talked about in Few Communicate, or Tons Communicate, Few Connect. Permissional becomes more leadership than fear, if that makes sense. At a permissional level, people will stop complying with an order and they start following and doing things because they really want to. So we have to find a way. I wrote this down. The foundation of great leadership is in the relationship. That I attend again. A lot of this is review. That's where organizational lines are crossed, teamwork develops, relationships begin, and it's when people feel like they're cared for. And that's really the premise of this chapter. Is that, let me see where I put it here. I went so much into this that hold on just a second, let me get to it. John Dewey, one of America's most profound philosophers, phrased it a bit differently. Dr. Dewey said that the deepest urge in human nature is the desire to be important. The desire to be important. It's so significant. How do we make people feel important? What's an easy way? Just, spit them out, raise your hand, whatever. Easy. I mean, this is not a trick question at all. So if you think you have the answer, you have the answer or answers.
Ask them questions about themselves.
Yep. What do we like to talk about the most? Ourselves.
Yes.
That's exactly right, Dana. So we know that human tendency. We know that egotistical, flesh that we're in. It just causes us to think inward. And when we turn that outward, it changes it. And people notice it. I played golf yesterday with my buddy Bill and his son. Bill is a franchise or an operator of Chick-fil-A, and his son is going to become one and has worked with him and traveled around and done opens. And he went to a leader or a seminar, and it was a training on how to be a better listener. And it was about, he talked these phrases, and I've read, I've studied this ad nauseum, but I hadn't heard it in a long time. And it's like little things like, so what you're saying is, so if I hear you correctly, so what you're doing is you're asking, am I understanding you right? And you know what I'm saying? So there's all kinds of tips and tricks out there to be a great listener and ask great questions. That is absolutely one. Ask great questions and then be a great listener. Have you ever had somebody ask you a question, you give an answer, and they talk like you never gave an answer? Like, that either like, and then I know I'm going off on a tangent. I ask myself 2 questions every time I'm asked a question. Now it's innate. First is, why are they asking? Like if somebody says, what's your party affiliation? Ding, 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 ding. Why are they asking? I mean, are they really curious? Do they think I'm so smart and learned that they could glean some political mastery from me and my affiliation? No. And the second question that I always answer no when it comes to that is, do I want to answer it? I'm reminding myself that I'm not obligated to answer anybody's questions. Does that make sense? All right. Any questions, errors, omissions, additions, cares, concerns before we move on? I'm going to wipe my nose. Excuse me.
Yep.
All right.
Matt,
Bam.
and in addition to what Dana was saying, asking questions, I think it's being genuinely interested in people,
Yep.
because people can ask you questions for their motive to make a sale or to manipulate you. But when you genuinely are interested in people, and that's something we can learn, they can tell the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And my laptop just went off, so it won't stay on plugged in. That's all right. We'll just it's charging.
Hey, Matt, can I say something?
Yes, you may.
Hold on, I think I got the wrong earpiece in here. All right, is that better?
It's so much better.
I'm just so used to wearing the other
How does
earpiece
your
and listening.
earpiece affect me? I don't understand. Man.
Well, my microphone is actually on this
Oh,
side.
I
so
got you.
Gotcha.
That's hilarious.
So I think you said it when you said it before, the interest, find something that you're both interested in. And I got to step in there and say, I never did wholesale accounts, but I went out for the first time this week. I had 4 appointments, 1 with a pet place and 3 with CBD pharmacies, 2 of which were very interested in our product. But being in the industry that we are in, when you go into a place like that, you automatically have that common interest in CBD.
Yeah.
So right away, it was a connection that, hey, you know what? We're both talking CBD and we both have that passion about it.
Right.
And it's how you represent yourself, because you can't be shy. I mean, I'm a people person, so it comes really natural for me. Like, I should have been a salesperson a long time ago. So I really hope the wholesale, starts working out for me. But just to be engaged with that interest, like you said, really is a connection off the bat.
Well, and we remember that from the last book, that it starts with common ground.
Yeah, and I've taken
right.
everything that you guys, both you and Stacy, have said, and I applied that. And I even called Jill afterwards because I just felt, wow, I had an incredible day. I mean, I don't know if I got the sales or not, but I had enough confidence in myself, and I was just like to say, hey, thanks for all the inspiration and your keys that really made it easy for me to go out and do what I did.
Good. And it gets better. Now, listen, when you're first doing it, the sale's not the most important thing.
It's not.
I mean, it's
I know that.
Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But it's not
it's the engagement.
You're getting more value in building your confidence and reading people. Like you said, you are a people person. So I know you're very sensitive to, facial expressions and motions and movement. And you can start seeing, hey, last 2 times I said this, I lost interest. Or, I asked this great question and I've done it twice now. And so I began, honestly, and it's not insincere. I've done this. In fact, it went viral. It was called box training. And it's like, have your little spiels in a box. Like if somebody asks me about the 500 pain bomb, well, I know the points I want to hit there. And what happens is when you pull out a box and you're like, okay, it's time for this box, and you pull it out and you've got 5 sentences that I would say almost the same way, right? I'm not saying that's how you have to do it, but out of the 5, I would start losing, like I'd lose interest here. And I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to pull that out of the box. I'm not going to use that anymore. And I try new stuff too. That's the difference between this kind of sales and others that I've been involved in. It's not the same every time. In other previous worlds, it's like you want to just keep doing the same thing. You don't want to deviate. But in this world, it's completely different. You can deviate. Because if I've got 10 boxes, I may pull out 3 of them for you, Leandro, based on the questions that I ask and the answers that you give. And I may go see Glenn, and I may not touch any of those 3. And I have these 4 that I'm bringing out. Maybe I see a big warehouse place, and I'm using all 10. Do you see? So you can still be malleable in how you never want to get rigid. You never want to go from A to B to C to D to E to F in every appointment and every interaction with people. It's got to change, but you also got, Glenn, to keep track of what's working and what's not, right? You can't just go.
Yeah, exactly. And then just like you said, it's pulling out of the box. And what I actually, because I remember you talking a long time ago about those boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I actually pulled out of the box was the 3,500 milligram.
Yeah.
Because I just simply, we broke out into that conversation of what kind of high dosage do you have compared to our 3,500 milligram? And he was just like really interested in our product. So
right.
And I was able to, and I was able to leave, a package of the the little free sample packages of pain balm.
Yes.
And I left a trial size 750 with them for free, you know, out of my pocket for, you know, hey, if it's a chance to, because they seemed interested in, so if I can spend a couple dollars in trying to get that sale, then so be it, you know.
Amen. I'm telling you, Glenn. And now it's rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
You said, I hope this wholesale thing works. Dude, it will if you go
it
to
will.
another
It
pub,
will. It will.
right?
It will. You know,
You go to
and that's the
another
whole
pub, it's
thing. You
gonna
gotta have
happen.
you gotta have confidence in yourself. And I've said it time and time again, and you've said it. It's what you put in is what you're gonna get out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And activity
So
breeds two things.
so
It breeds activity, right?
Yeah.
You get active, you're going to stay active. You get active, send out 100 emails, you're going to be active, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And then it also, like you're exuding right now, is confidence.
yeah, yeah.
And then it
And
gets really
believe me, I've been in
specific,
construction for so many years, and I need a change of pace.
Yeah.
My body needs a change of pace. So
I hear you,
I
brother.
thanks for all the educational tips that you've given. So I appreciate it.
Oh man, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I wonder if Leandro, dang it. All right, we're just going to keep going. I'm going to write up the book. That's what I do, babe. That's how I do. All right, so listen, I am just going to go through the book. When I read the book, I highlight it. I hope you guys mark up and highlight and note in your book. And then when I write my notes, I go right by the highlight. And I go, okay, here's what I was thinking then. And then that's kind of, you know, the view behind the curtain, how the magic happens, right? So here he talks about the things that people need in life. And I really found this fascinating because it's true. Health and the preservation of life, food, sleep, money, and things that money buy, right? That's a good add-on, right? Money in itself, who cares? Life in the hereafter, sexual gratification, the well-being of our children, the feeling of importance. He has these 8 things. Certainly there's others that you could add, but the deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. He does make a claim in here that I don't know if I agree with, because I've heard that horses. Has anybody heard that horses like to win races? Like they enjoy, like I don't know if that's true. How do you know? I mean, how do you know? How do they know dogs are colorblind? I mean, I know because they don't have rods and cones, right? That's probably the premise of it. But a dog, hey, you can't ask it. Can you imagine? No, I don't, man. It's all shades of gray. He says that one of the things that differentiates us from animals is the desire to feel important. I know my dog, he wants to feel important. So I don't know if I agree with this, but I do agree with the premise. And the story was his dad was a hog and a cattle farmer, and they bred these exquisite hogs and white-faced cow. And they toured around the country to these shows, the livestock shows, and he won blue ribbon after blue ribbon after blue ribbon. And he said people would come over to the house and he'd pull out this big long thing full of blue ribbons. And I thought about that, like when we put our trophies up, if you really analyze it to self, like I did, it's like, that's exactly it. I want to feel important. I want to feel important in my home. I want to feel important to my kids. I want to feel important to my employees, to my spouse, to myself, right? I want to feed my own self-esteem. So it's the desire that, and that desire, if you think about it, it could be, you know, we look at it as a, you know, I don't know how you look at it, but it usually is the catalyst to bad things happening. And he mentioned, you know, kids going into gangs or engaging in a lifestyle of crime or divorce or broken families. You know, most divorces don't happen. Like most guys, and I've read some studies on this years ago, me and my buddy John Kite were doing a study, and most men don't leave their wife. We were studying men. Why would I study a woman, right? I can't improve that. I can't improve. Most men leave their wife and engage in an affair, not for sexual reasons. It's because the husband found someone who made them feel like he hung the moon.
Amen.
Right? And that desire is so strong that, you know, I think I've talked about it. You guys know I'm a man of faith. That I heard Andy Stanley once say, the older Andy Stanley, that a spouse can only fulfill about 80% of what we need as a person. And, you know, the other 20% has to be fulfilled by something bigger. You know, in my life, it's Jesus. But how many people leave the 80 in search of the 20? They're getting 80%, but they can't get everything from their spouse. This is a marriage training. Like, don't feel like your spouse, don't put them in a position to fail in that they always, they have everything you need to fulfill you. They don't. And I think I talked about it maybe a couple times ago, TD Jakes. I saw him on a show once, and he was doing a marriage thing, and his was the other side. He was talking about how wives are always beating up their husbands and criticizing them, and belittling them and making them feel down. He said, I got something you try next time. He said, next time when your husband brings in a bag of groceries, I want you to go, oh man, look how strong he is. Look at him. He said, next time he comes in, see if he ain't carrying 2 bags, right? Encouragement, showing appreciation is such a more effective mechanism to influence somebody than fear or criticism. Hurting people is just it's never acceptable. And I have been an employee of an abusive, I grew up in a very abusive home, very critical, horrible environment. So that's kind of what this is. It's just, putting a bold stamp on the value that we place in feeling important. And again, it goes back to what we talked about before, the easy way to switch that, right? And I'm not talking about, when I talk about edifying, encouraging, I'm not talking about flattery. Vatris talked about flattery. Flattery is, I want to tell you something you want to hear. Appreciation is different. The difference is sincerity, right? And you'll be like, well, how do I become more sincere? Think more of the other person than ourselves, right? You want to make somebody feel important? Serve them. That's easy. I'm telling my son, James, he's getting so good. Man, my son, James, is doing so awesome. And I am so appreciative. I'm an encourager anyway. It's just my nature. But man, I am lavishing him with praise right now. And it's because I'm reading this book. When we read, it changes the prism through which we see life. It completely changes the paradigm for which we operate and view and assess things. And I've always been an encourager. I told you, because of my childhood, I was so intentional in letting my kids know every night when I tucked them in. I don't tuck them in anymore. If I went and tucked in my 19-year-old, she'd be like, this is weird, Dad. I tell them that they're world changers. They're difference makers. They're loved. They matter. They have purpose. They can do what they want. Every night I told him that. And so I'm an encourager, and now I can't even say enough, because he was challenged with a math teacher, and he's got a B in math. He's got, 2 B's that he wants to make an A. He, was a very athletic guy, but never played basketball. And he's at this private school where a lot of kids play basketball their whole life. And he tries on to make the team, and he didn't make it. He made the practice squad. And even tell me he made the practice squad. I was like, dude, you made the practice squad. Like, you have an environment to work your butt off and tell the coach. I would ask coach, what do I need to do? Tell me what I need to do, and then go do it to the best of your ability. And sure enough, their first game, he went as a practice squad player, thought he was going to be sitting in the stands watching the game. He shows up. Oh man, I could cry. Coach gives him a jersey. Got some playing time. I'm telling you, so proud of him. And so in this season where he's maturing and he's overcoming and he's dealing with adversity in the right way, right? Not shying away from it, but going at it. Man, I'm just glad I'm reading this book. So I'm like over exaggerative in my praise, but it's sincere, right? It's not to cajole him to do it more. That would be the wrong way of looking at it. It's like, oh, I'm just going to say what I have to keep it going. I really appreciate him. I really respect him. And so I know that praise is effective to him. And of course, I do hope he continues, but not for me, not so I can feel proud as a dad, but so he can become, I tell him all the time, I'm not teaching him to be a great kid. I'm training him to be a great adult. So I hope you are encouraging those around you, serving those around you. Anyway, the story was, I was driving him around all the time, and I asked him to do something, and he gave me some lip about it. I was like, James, I don't serve anyone as much as I do you in my life. And I don't ask anyone to do any less than I ask you. And I told him a story that I won't bore you guys with, but we used to, people would call me to go train their groups, and I'd have great leaders come in and train my group. And our big thing was when you came in, I knew what your favorite beverage was. I knew where you were staying. I would tell the hotel, I would call before, make sure that everything was ready for you. If you flew in, I'd pick you up at the airport. I'll take you to the hotel. I'll take you to dinner. I'll serve them. Why? Because I really appreciated what they were doing. We didn't pay each other to do this. We did this because we believed in that. We believed in helping other people. We believed in to get where we wanted to go, we had to help others get where they wanted to go. And I didn't go there. It cost me money every time. I mean, especially if I flew or if I drove a long way, I got hotel, I got everything. A lot of times they'd offer to give you money, but it's like, no, I want to make this investment. Like to me, it would have cheapened it. Like I wanted to do that for them. And when they did it for me, I served the crap out of them, and they did me too. And it was, I'm telling you, when you get into an environment, when you get into a sphere of influence, where you have people that are appreciative and wanting to serve one another, man, what a neat culture. Woo. I mean, you watch out, you talk about being productive and being effective. That's, man, things really ramp up when you got a lot of people who are doing things for the betterment of others, not for their own self-gain. Maybe it is, but that's a passive. That's not the active. It's, it's like money. Is money good? Yeah, money's good. But if you don't spend it, it's just a pile of paper, right? So yes, we want to make money, but the real thing I want is a quality of life. The real thing I want is safety, security for my family, right? Does that make sense? That's what money buys. That's why I like that where you said money and what it can buy. All right. Whoa. I got to slow down here. Any comments? All right, we just keep going, man. We don't have much left. Oh, my laptop's back up.
All right.
Well, we'll see, right? It's 1%. I can't believe I can't use it while it won't. It's dwindling faster than it's accumulating. Maybe it's a current cord. All right. Anyway, hey, we're good. We're good. Okay. I would encourage you to read the book. He does do a little bit of a story about how a psychiatrist talks about how people's desire to be important, people's heartfelt desires in their life can cause them to go insane and create alternate realities. I think we all know that, but little story in there that I found pretty interesting. And then like I said, I really like the history part of it. I'm a huge Schwab fan, and he says, I've yet to find the person, however great or exalted his position is, who did not do better work and put forth greater effort under a spirit of approval than he would do under a spirit of criticism. We all know that, right? I don't know, deeply personally, anybody, Leandro, I know very well, but any of you guys, but I think I can make an assumption that you're not looking to go out and be critical of others. So let's take it, instead of kind of whitewashing it, well, I'm not critical. I don't do that, knowingly or wantingly. Well, let's not whitewash it. And let's say instead of I'm not critical, how much more encouraging can I be? How much more can I find appreciation out of people? And that's why I always said it's very hard to communicate, connect with people if you don't really like people. Because if you don't really like people, if you can't find something to really, really like about people, how are you going to appreciate them? Right? And I know a lot of people don't, have a great appreciation. I know people, they're not deep acquaintances of mine, and I don't do life with them, but I know them, and they're successful, and they're very, one of my friends I know is having an affair, and he doesn't hide it. He's just so self-absorbed, and he's a great friend. He was just a horrible husband. Glad I'm telling you, I got another guy like that. He's a great friend, man. He's horrible with women. So I find that fascinating. And I think that, again, I don't believe I'm telling you guys anything you don't already know. It's just a matter of getting it in front of us and being intentional about it and allowing it to shape the lens that we're seeing life through, right? There is nothing I need more than the nourishment for my self-esteem. So that's what he says appreciation is nourishment to the soul. And he does a thing. He's like, he actually did a fast for 6 days. And he said it wasn't that bad. He said he was actually more hungry at the end of the second day than he was on the 6th day. I've never fasted for more than 5 hours, so I don't know. I know at about 4.5, man, it gets rough. And And he says that he's like, we want, like, if we have kids, we want to feed them, right? You want to shelter them. You want to give their needs. Being made to feel important and appreciated, he indicates, and I might agree, is more important than those things. Because if I'm not appreciated and I'm not nourished and I'm miserable, how much do I care about the food that I'm eating? Right? I mean, I know I need that to live, but I need this to live too. One of my friends got a divorce once, and I told him, I said, dude, you know my stance on family, but you're a grown man, do what you got to do. I'm not going to hate on you. I would just ask, because I know his whole family, 5 kids, the whole 9 yards. I said, I would just ask that if you need to leave, don't break everything on the way out. And it's almost as if he heard me and says, you know what, if Pitts is saying I need to go that way, I'm going that way. Because it was a horrible divorce. And I was, at that time, our kids were going to a little private school here in St. Pete, and I made good friends with the pastor, younger guy, loved leadership and success. I mean, so every Tuesday morning I'd drop off Catherine and James, and I'd go into his office, and we've had coffee for about an hour. And I remember one morning I said, Pastor, Paul was his name, so Paul, I got this buddy, and he's just engaged, he's just hurting people, and it's just I can't do it. And I was like, I just feel like I need to disassociate with him. And he goes, no way, Pitts, no way. And I go, what do you mean, Paul? And he goes, if you're not going to be the light of Jesus, who is? If it's not you, then who? So listen, you don't have to be a person of spirit or a spiritual person for this to apply to you. If you're not showing someone they're important and showing a deep, sincere appreciation for something about that person, how do you know if someone is? If not you, then who? If not me, then whom? I know people, man, most people in this world, I wouldn't say most, there are a lot of unhappy people in this world that could, I was saying, how do you know when somebody needs to be encouraged? They're breathing. They're breathing. People need encouragement. They need that spiritual nourishment, right? That I like the nourishment for my self-esteem. What a pragmatic way to put it, right? Nourishment for my self-esteem. And again, we're not talking about flattery. Flattery is selfish and insincere. It should fail, and usually does, right, when we use it. And again, I know I'm repeating myself, but the difference really is our focus. If our focus is really on the other person, it's really on trying to find value for that person, helping them get where they want to go, attaining a permissional influence over them through common ground, Glenn Brown, through a connection, through asking great questions, Dana Boyd, being an active listener, right? Responding to those questions, solving problems for people, serving people, edifying people, encouraging people. I mean, appreciating people. All this sounds like puppy's breath and ice cream, and it's reality. Like we can make that world around us. And I know this sounds dreamy and everything, and I always hate it when people, well, if we just, if me and 2 other people and them and 2 other people, before you know it's community, but that's real. It's real. I mean, if I'm in my sphere of life, Stacy and I are equally yoked. When I'm reading, she's reading. She might be behind, she might be ahead, but we don't like to engage in activities that would cause us to grow in different directions. Or, we were big readers in one of my businesses, and everybody read. And I was so intentional. I was like, please, 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 if you're reading, please have your spouse read. Please. Because what happens is one person begins to grow, the other person is not, and it creates a distance. It creates a separation. That happened to me once. There's only one girl that really broke my heart. Her name was Pam. And Pam was taking classes at USF, and I took a semester off, and I was working in the restaurant business. Having a lot of fun, getting nothing done, right? And I remember my dad saying, he goes, you shouldn't do that. He said, because Pam's going to school, and she's going to separate from you. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. She went off to school and then ended up going to Florida State. I don't know what the heck I was doing. It's all a blur. That period of my life is definitely a blur, with a few legal consequences too. All right, so that's really all we got. It's about appreciating people It's about serving people, putting them in front of ourselves. I will get that digital book this week. I may not get it in, but hopefully I will. I'll do it today. Hopefully I get that. I can read pretty quick. I mean, when I sit down, I can get through some things. So I don't need a week to read, 3 chapters. So I'll do that. I think that'll be really cool, Dana, to see the differences between the two and the similarities. I kind of told Leandro to kind of like, reading the book and seeing the movie, right? There's going to be some discrepancies, but it'll be interesting to find them. Any errors, comments, additions, cares, concerns? Yes, Beatrice.
I just want to share one thing. I've been applying these principles to a small leadership group we have. You know about it, Matt. We have a project in search of peace to raise money to help feed the hungry during COVID. And we have volunteers. These people are not making money. We have a student. And we meet and I encourage them. And it's so amazing. One young man, he said he would give us 1 hour a day, 1 hour a week to volunteer. Because of the encouragement, he is putting so much time into this website. They have literally, these 2 young men have taken this on since I'm here in Kentucky with my mother-in-law. They have taken this on as if they're their own. I didn't start this to get business, but one of the students, he has a friend who owns a gym who's interested in CBD. I just gave him some samples. So this can become a really great wholesale business, particularly with our new sampling process.
Yeah,
But I just want to say, these principles apply for every aspect of our life. And I believe if we apply these principles, they will get us business. And
Yeah, no doubt. We're going to be more attractive. It's like it's a get rich slow program is what it is. Literally. It's just, it's a farmer's mentality, right, Beatrice? You till the soil when you're supposed to, you plant the seeds when you're supposed to, you nurture, you take care of the grounds, you work so hard for so long before you even see a little sprout come out, but you have faith in it. And if this were, just a spiritual meeting, if we were all church members, I would tell you that energy flows and it magnifies and it attracts and it binds. And I guess you don't even need to really be a spiritual person to believe that. But that's true. I mean,
The harvest is great, but the workers are few.
Yeah, the harvest is full of the spirit is willing and the flesh is weak too, right? Maybe not. All right. Thank you guys very much. I love it. Hey, we had 11 this week.
Yes, we did.
Hey, guys, it's not easy to get people to, and it's not easy to get people to sacrifice. And that's really what it is, right? It's a matter of engaging in activities, whether we may want to do something else or not, but we know that it has a value. I mean, it's like working out, man. Sometimes I really can't wait to go in there and sometimes I drag myself in there, but either way, I know the activity helps, right? Matter of fact, when I feel like I'm dragging myself in there, I feel like it's more effective because I'm overcoming something mentally too, from a discipline standpoint. That's what I tell myself anyway. Yeah. All right, you guys, thank you very much. Next Thursday, I will get that book and let me take a look at the next chapter. See how long it is. These chapters are short. Oh, this is no, it's short, man. 15 pages. All right, cool. So we'll do, he who can do this has the whole world with him. He who cannot walks a lonely way. Good stuff. I love his titles.
They're timeless.
They are timeless.
Yes.
Well said. All right, you guys. Hey, thank you, Vivian, for wearing your headdress again today. I missed it on Monday. See you guys. Have a great day.